Hello, welcome. I'm Jimmy Bach, and this is episode 15, along with my great producer, Chandler Holmes, as we continue to give you history of different things. This area, we're the greater Shickshinny area, and so today we're going to be talking about the Maconaquah story. Now, as soon as you heard Maconaquah, you're probably thinking this story is about the community of Maconaquah. Well, it's not. This is a story of the saga of Francis Slocum. This is a book that is at the Children's Library, and I think after hearing the story, I think you might want to come and get this book and read it, because it's a very interesting story, and it's about a girl who was 5 years old who was kidnapped by the Indians. And this is her whole story. This is actually this came from my mother's estate. This is an autographed copy. The person that told the story and wrote the book was named Kitty Dye. She actually autographed this particular book. And it tells the whole story. It's very interesting because, as I said, in episode 14, we were talking about what happened to the Indians and stuff. And so here we're going to be talking about what happened to this little girl. And I have some other information, but I'm going to read. This is what we have, and when you come to the museum, you'll be able to see this. This is a story of Maconaquah. 3 Lenape Indians kidnapped a 5-year-old Quaker child, Frances Slocum, from her parents' farm on November the 2nd, 1778. The Indians also grabbed her 12-year-old brother, Ebenezer, and family friend, Wareham Kingsley. They released Ebenezer because of his crippled leg. The bandits hid in a cave near Abrams Creek while a search party looked for the stolen children. And as an adult, Frances could remember her father calling her. And remember, she was 5 years old. Her captor, and his name is Tuck Hoss, that was the Indian name, supposedly dressed her in Indian clothes and took her to Fort Niagara, where he reportedly gave her to a couple that had lost their children. She was given the name, and there's 3 here, I'm not going to read them, but because I'm not sure I pronounce them correctly, and I don't want to do any disservice. But anyway, she had 3 given names. The couple raised her as her own, and she likely adapted easily to Indian customs because she was so young. She would have played games, wore jewelry, both of which were not part of Quaker customs. Remember, she came from a Quaker family. In addition, she would have learned how to sow corn, hunt with a bow and arrow. When she was an adult, she and her family moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. She married a Lenape Indian, but the marriage was not successful. And when her husband wanted to move west, she divorced him and stayed with her parents. You think Indians had divorce as well, but guess how they did it? Divorce was quite simple. The wife would leave the husband's possessions outside the hut, and he would have to return to his family. Boy, that was pretty simple. I wonder what some lawyers would think about that today. While nursing a wounded Miami warrior back to life, she grew fond of him. They married. They had 4 children together. Both of their sons died young. When she married the second time, she was given the new name Maconaquah. Now, it's spelled a little bit differently than what the town of Maconaquah is, but there's a reason here you'll find out down the road. And Maconaquah meant little bare woman. And it said probably because referring to her small stature and great strength. It was customary for one to change their names when they had a new part in life. So that's why it changed from 3 names here to there. Her husband was a chief, And the couple moved around numerous times with their people until the chief retired. I didn't even know chiefs retired, but apparently, according to this, they did. When the treaties of 1818, 1838, and 1840 stripped Indians of their land, Maconaquah was allowed to keep her land because she was white. So there works an opposite discrimination. Maconaquah was finally reunited with her family later in life. She told her story to a guest, Colonel George Ewing, who wrote a letter describing her story. He sent the letter to Lancaster, where it was eventually published in the Lancaster Intelligencer. A friend of Slocum's told the story to her siblings, Joseph, Isaac, and Mary. Her parents had already passed away. Her siblings traveled to meet Maconaquah in hopes of finding their long-lost sibling. Upon meeting Maconaquah, they knew it was Frances by her disfigured finger that Isaac had injured as a young boy. And that's in the book. The Slocums invited her to live with them, but she declined. She in turn invited Joseph to live with her, but he also declined. And in November 1846, her nephew George Slocum, his wife and baby moved in to live with her. Frances Slocum was a strong woman who lived in difficult times and survived. In March 1847, she died of pneumonia at the age of 74. Her name lives on this bustling community and the trail that bears her name. And the trail in Maconaquah is called the Maconaquah Loop Trail, apparently after Frances Slocum. But that's not all that she was, things were named after her. Frances Slocum State Recreational Area on the banks near Peru, India. The Maconaquah High School in Indiana. Frances Slocum Elementary School in Marion, Indiana. Frances Slocum Elementary School, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And Frances Slocum State Park in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, and of course Maconaquah with the Loop Trail. So we have a lot of information about Frances Slocum. I have read this book, and I encourage you to come to the library, and I know that Cheryl would let even adults take this book out and read it, and it's a great book to learn about local history and about how this 5-year-old girl who had red hair, and that was one reason that the Indian chiefs really liked her, because of her red hair, and adopted her. But she was taken in by the Indians and went on to live a life that the Indians lived, their particular lifestyle. And she never wanted to go back. So that's the story of Frances Slocum. It's called the Maconaquah story. I encourage you to come and read this, see the different things we have about her, because she's part of the history of this area. So this is Jimmy Bach signing off with producer Chandler Holmes, and this is episode 15. Please subscribe and pass this on to your friends. Thank you again for watching.